Miss rebels. As Mississippi's flagship university, we dig deeper, see farther, work harder. We pioneered human organ transplants. We helped prove Einstein's theory of gravitational waves. We are conducting life-changing research that solves the problems of today. We are Ole Miss, transforming lives and the world.
Hey, welcome to the POMcast with Stephen Willis. We're going to start in a few minutes, but I want to tell you to hit up our social sites, retweet, share, comment, like, do all of that stuff. It can only help us out and it'll make the show even better. But we're getting ready to give you a lot of good Ole Miss information, and I just thought I would tell you that because the POMcast is starting. Well, it's starting right now. Wait, no, that's a little early. It is starting right about now. Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Huge weekend in Oxford. Had a lot of fun watching that game, and Ole Miss takes care of Texas A&M 29-19. All apologies to my boys at the Junction blog and Biscuits and SEC for kind of taking that L home. So thank you very much for listening. I'm your host, Stephen Willis. Before we get started, I do want to tell you about Travel and Cruise World. That's 1-800-330-7461, 1-800-330-7461. What I was trying to do, we're 20 months into this pandemic at this time. People are delaying, and it's lasting longer than it should, but the main thing is everybody needs a vacation. These guys can provide boots on the ground in Central Florida. They know the mask rules at Disney, at Universal, and what's going on, and they can be a resource for you and your vacation so you don't run into those unwanted surprises along the way. So give them a call, 1-800-330-7461. That's travelandcruiseworld.com. See Central Florida like a local. Down below, you can see our podcast lineup. Search any of those with Positively Ole Miss. Leave a 5-star review. We'd appreciate that. You can say whatever you want to. Just leave a 5-star review. That way everybody else can search and find the podcast more easily. Thank you very much for listening, by the way. And, of course, you can watch us on Twitter at the Stephen Willis or at Ole Positively. You can catch us on YouTube at Positively Ole Miss or Facebook.com/POMcast. Search Positively Ole Miss on YouTube. Subscribe. Hit the bell. You'll not only know that we're streaming, you'll know what we're streaming about. By far the best notification system out there. So if you want to know what's going on, you need to subscribe to them and hit the bell there so you can get notifications so you can watch on whatever you want to watch on. So that definitely will help you out. And also you can catch us on Twitch at Positively Ole Miss. All one word, all lowercase. Magical weekend. I don't think it was quite as good as the 2014 Bama, but is about as good as it could be, honestly. The Katy Perry thing, the whole 9 yards. I think just because we beat Alabama that time, it made it just feel a little bit more special than beating Texas A&M. Now, in the first half of that game, it's one of the most dominant halves of defense I've ever seen Ole Miss play. It really goes back to like the 2008 Ole Miss game whenever you just felt bad for Mississippi State's quarterback. Second half, A&M adjusted. They're a good team with good players. They've been recruiting very highly the last few years. Made adjustments, was able to move the ball a little bit. They still had trouble getting into the end zone though. And other than Devin Achane, there was not really a weapon for A&M that was working. Achane was the avenue. He ended up going over 100 yards for the game. But he popped one, a lot like that little quick guy from Liberty last week. I'm curious about that, but that could just be the fact that they have better athletes than we have on defense in certain positions. So the super quick guy is going to get loose. Everybody talks about tackling as a problem. Tackling is a problem. Tackling is a symptom of your defense's talent level. If they're reacting on heart, if they're reacting on things like that, a talented team with good athletes is going to cause them to tackle less good because instead of wrapping up straight ahead, all of a sudden you're 2 feet away and you're doing arm tackles. So there's tackles that can be broken. And it's all because of the athleticism of the other team. So we have to improve on that side. We have to recruit to this defense. Now, one thing that has to be said, and I will hear nothing, I've told y'all all out. I did a graphic last week about the improvement of this defense. I've been calling this for 3 or 4 weeks at this point. And they came out and actually really defense won that game. Wasn't necessarily an offense. And I know that sounds weird with the offense gaining 400 yards in the first half. I understand that. But the defense won that game. The offense basically went away in the second half. Now, I think a little bit of that is Matt Corral's ankle, because I think he's still getting shot up. The Novocaine or whatever that is wears off a little bit. So that affects him. That happened also with the beat-up wide receivers in the second half. They just weren't as effective as they were. You see a drop pass. But if Ole Miss plays Auburn with that lineup, just as healthy as they are right now, what they started the Texas A&M game, that level of health, if they do that against Auburn, they win that game by a touchdown. That I have no doubts about. But it is what it is, honestly. But Ole Miss goes to 8-2. They've won 9 straight home games. They are 12-3 in their last 15. They're going for 9 in a row home games, and on Saturday. And I think they're in position. If you just look at it, their hardest road game at the beginning of their schedule is the next one that's going to be in doubt. I think they play Kentucky October 1st of next year, so they have a chance to get to 12 or 13 in a row at home. But the first 6 games of the season next year is extremely winnable. Georgia Tech next year, by the way. Looking forward to that. But they have a chance to start off in a way that can really help them out going into the end of the season. Now, Ole Miss has never had a tougher November. Never. You want to hear Ole Miss in November this year? Alabama, at Arkansas, and Mississippi State. And before Alabama, the last game in October is Texas A&M. So there has never been a harder close to the season. But we'll see what happens, what kind of momentum they can build going through. You can see our Egg Bowl countdown clock. We put that up. It's right there. Yeah. Going to have that run. That is set up, the countdown, until 6:30 Central on Thanksgiving night. So we are almost at 10 days exactly. At 6:30 tonight, we'll hit 10 days exactly until the kickoff of that game. So that is pretty cool. So I figured my whole thought on this was might as well just lean into it and have a good time. So we're going to lean into it and have a good time. So I'm looking forward to that game. The Ole Miss State game is going to be great. Now, I realize I live in Central Florida, and the odds of me running into an obnoxious State fan is almost nil. And you guys have to live with it and go back and forth every day. I get that. But I don't have to go through that. I'm not wired the same way that everybody else is. There's some people on my Twitter timeline last week, they talked about Mississippi State when Lane Kiffin picked State to win the game and everything. And yeah, it was a good pick. I like Mike Leach and everything. It was going on. But there's some people that got upset because part of their fandom is part of being an Ole Miss fan. They also think they have to root for Mississippi State to lose every game. Now, you only have to root for Mississippi State to lose one game. And other than that, it's completely irrelevant. It doesn't affect you at all. You need them actually to win some games along the way. Them beating Auburn last week helped us out. We're still in the race. We're in second in the West. Now, Alabama needs to lose twice. They need to lose against Arkansas, and they need to lose against Auburn. And I don't think either one of those are going to happen. So, in that case, we probably need Alabama to win out. If they were to win out and get on a roll and beat Arkansas, beat Auburn, and then beat Georgia, then Ole Miss would go to the Sugar Bowl. Because Alabama to be in the playoff, Georgia had dropped down to like number 4 in the playoff, and Ole Miss would be the highest ranking SEC team. So they would be in the Sugar Bowl at that point. If Ole Miss wins out, I think the worst Ole Miss falls to is the Peach Bowl. So they're going to be in an Access Bowl. Think about that. That's 3 Access Bowls in 7 years. Think about that. At Ole Miss, 3 Access Bowls in 7 years. That's almost half the time playing on one of those super elite bowl games. Now, we haven't made the playoff, But that's called knocking on the door, people. People need to realize what that means. Now, and that happens with probation all in the middle. Those 5 years are for nothing, by the way. Hope everybody enjoyed living in the moment in those 5 years, but those 5 years were for nothing. Because nothing got interrupted. But if Ole Miss were to lose the Egg Bowl and drop down to 9-3, the worst they're looking at is the citrus. Orlando would love to have Ole Miss. Absolutely love to have Ole Miss down here. They don't think they're going to get them. Nobody thinks they're going to get them. Ole Miss is that surprise team that if Ole Miss were to lose a game, they would fall to the citrus, and the citrus would be over the moon. And if Ole Miss lost the Egg Bowl, they'd still come down here with 25,000 people. Because the Citrus Bowl is that big of a bowl. It's a successful season. If you go to the Citrus and above to a bowl game, it is a successful season. Ole Miss has a chance to win both their next two games and their bowl game for 11 wins. This program, in the history of the program, think Johnny Vault, think the whole 9 yards, has never won 11 games in a season. Think about that. 11 would be the program record. This is year 2. So now we've hit the point where people are going to talk about a top 10 team in November looking at an Access Bowl about what we can't do, what we can't have at Ole Miss, what we they need to get away from. The realistic thing, if you want to be real about this, if you just want to absolutely be real about this, and I'm just going to put this case down for Lane Kiffin and everything else. Lane Kiffin is the perfect personality fit for Ole Miss. Everything he does, his online persona, everything is the perfect persona for Ole Miss. Ole Miss needs to embrace the shit out of that. Second, if Ole Miss can pay $7.5 to $8 million a year, which is the rumor that they can, and that pretty much comes from Keith Carter, who just said the simple answer was yes, they'd be able to pay whatever's necessary. Then money's not going to be the issue. The personality's not going to be the issue. I don't think anybody's telling Lane no. I think everything else is going to be able to be built, because this is the better thing. When you go to a, quote, blue blood, like I said, blue bloods don't really exist, but it's only basically a self-image at this point. If he were to go to Miami, there's going to be a group of people that's going to tell him how to do things. And this is how we do things. If he goes to Alabama, there's going to be a group of people, and he's going to talk about the Alabama way, and this is the way Nick Saban did this. If he goes to LSU, same thing's going to happen. This is the way we do things. There's going to be powerful boosters. At Ole Miss, he has the opportunity, and this is insanely close, to shape this program into his image. To build it exactly as it needs to be built. Because I look at progress as like a freeway. And you go down about 7 miles and there's an off-ramp. You can take that. And you go down about 7 more miles, there's an off-ramp. You can take that. At some point, you're going to take that off-ramp. But picture this interstate at Ole Miss as just a straight road going to one destination. There's not options along the way for you to mess this up. It's a straight thing. You can build it in your image and do what you need to do. Now, I understand we're not the most wealthy state in the union. I get that. But there's avenues for Ole Miss to build this up. Everybody talks about Arch Manning and his recruitment moving forward, that Georgia and all these people have NIL advantages. Does anybody actually really think that somebody named Manning in the state of Mississippi would not be a millionaire? I mean, it's crazy the amount of celebrity that comes with that name. They do that on TV. There's Manning's, Eli's Places on ESPN Plus. Archie's showing up. They're being courted by Caesars Sportsbook. Do we really think that on top of the national level stuff that Arch Manning would automatically be able to do, the local stuff in Mississippi wouldn't make up for the amount of money over anywhere in the country? That's crazy. That's a silly argument. That's not thought through. The 2023 class for Ole Miss has a chance to be the most special class in Ole Miss history. They are absolutely building blocks going to that. Ole Miss wins 10, 11 games going into next season. Nobody has anything to pitch to any player about Ole Miss. Because, like I told you, the culture of this program. One, let's see. It's all about the team. Pro mindset, right? Do what you're supposed to do. Protect the team is what we used to call it. But all about the team just popped in there. So pro mindset. The other thing is competition. That's the number one thing of this program. They're going to get better players than you expect, and they're going to make you compete against them to move forward on the depth chart. And by the time you get to Sunday, they're going to make practice really, really hard. And by the time you get to Saturday, you're going to be heads and shoulders above who you face. It's kind of what Alabama has now. And the other thing is fun. They want this program to look like a fun program. That's the reason they put a fire extinguisher in Jonathan Hess's hands, so that we can get the TV shot of him going around, dancing around, doing that with the smoke cloud going up, because people are going to jump to having fun. People are going to complain about the uniforms. The uniforms that Ole Miss has are the best in college football. No matter what, their whole set is the best in college football. They're red jerseys, but they're powder blue especially. Now, everybody will come to you and say, well, no, show me one recruit that picked a school because of jersey. And it's not about picking a school because of jersey. It's about getting the attention of the prospect so that he will visit your school later on. It's about building a relationship, and something as trivial to you as a uniform and the way it appears is going to be appealing to a 17-year-old to get your foot in the door. It's like, man, those guys look really good. I need to call them. Now, maybe it would be fun to go to a game there on campus next year, like if it's a class of 2024 guy. But the 2023s and 2024s have a chance to be unbelievably special in this class. This is a monster getting built in Oxford. And we're building up all different levels. The main thing that you need to do is just let him work. You just get to enjoy it. You get to have fun. You get to have the 10 years that were like 1956 to 1966 all over again. Let this happen. And if you do what you have to do everything you can do to keep him. I don't think he's going to leave. Not this year. So you're get him another year regardless. And it's going to build up everything. It's going to be really cool. All right, before we get into the spread, I do want to talk about the defense. I've been telling y'all for weeks that the improvement of this defense is off the charts. At the beginning of the season, I asked the questions like, Ole Miss finishes 60th in the nation in defense. What does that mean? And everybody said you're looking at a 10-win team. And there it is on the table. The defense is just improving because, honestly, DJ Durkin is a hell of a coach. He just really is. Now, everybody talks about what happened last year, and I get that there's armchair fans and there's couch fans and there's ultimate casuals. I get that. But what happened last year? I'll tell you what happened. The first 3 games of last year was the worst defense I've ever seen an Ole Miss team play. But that wasn't DJ Durkin's fault. That was a team with a new coach, with a new system, without a spring, without a fall camp. It's just normal weekly practices leading up to the season. So you have a whole bunch of guys, so personnel, you don't know who needs to be there. Coaches, like I said, are notoriously risk averse. So they want hours and hours and hours of film just to justify the thought that's in their head. You ended up with players last year playing that by the end of the year were not. Once the film kind of leveled out and they got the right guys on the field, second half of the season, the defense was just bad. Not the worst that I've ever seen. It was just bad. That was mainly because of the defensive line. So they went out and they recruited defensive linemen and did everything. And they flipped the system a little bit because they didn't have time to do that last year. They wanted to do that last year. They didn't have time to do that last year. So with the spring and everything built up, they went ahead and did the flip. And the Haycock system at Iowa State, the defensive wise. Now, you look at the light box defense, okay? This is important to know. This is the important thing. Everybody looks at the box and it's like, Ole Miss has 4 guys in the box. No, Ole Miss has 7 guys assigned to run defense. They're just positioned at a starting point a little bit less. And because of what's able to do, they're able to get down and meet them where they need to. You might move up a step or two. You might move back a step or two. But you're going to kind of be where you need to be. You can mix that with the stuff that DJ Durkin is comfortable with, what you're seeing with the cover 1 type stuff. You put those 2 defenses together and you've got a pretty nasty cocktail for offenses to try and figure out. Because if you're throwing out there man beaters, Ole Miss will be able to do the drop 8 and rush the passer with the 2 defensive ends they have. And if you think it's that and you're doing zone beaters, all of a sudden Ole Miss can get up there and man defense you. And they play off. Like Dean Leonard is and Tavares Robinson, their improvement from Canada to here is pretty much off the charts. They're kind of what we were hoping for. Now, we knew the transition from Canadian college football to the SEC was going to be a different level. We knew that. It was going to take a little while. I didn't know it was going to take 18 months, but here we are, basically. So, Ole Miss just puts through and does the work that they need to do, and you see those guys starting to take charge. You're not seeing many people throw at Dean Leonard right now. You're not seeing many people throw at Jalen Jones. And when Jake Springer's in there, this defense has a lot. They can do a lot of 3-3-5, 3-3 stack stuff, and it makes this defense very good. That's the reason the defense they replaced Springer with Ashante Seastrunk this weekend, so they can continue to do those 3-3 stuff and not get overly light. You really need special players on the outside doing those things. It's pretty good to see whenever things get going. Now, here we go with the Week 12 lines. Kentucky plays New Mexico State. They're a 36-point favorite. They opened at 36, and basically, every time you look at a number, it's like, I don't know if they can score that many points is better than anybody. But I did that with Alabama last week, and they almost covered in the first half. So I don't know if I'm going to get burned or not by that line. But that's a lot of points for Kentucky. Bama's a 20.5-point favorite. It opened at 22.5 at Bama. Is that at Bama? I may have made a mistake there. I thought that was in Fayetteville for whatever reason, but maybe it's not. But they're a 20-point favorite. Alabama's offense can come and go. We know what they're going to do game plan wise against Ole Miss or against Arkansas because of what they did against Ole Miss. So I expect them to line up, play a little bit of murder ball. It'll be about 2011 version Alabama. They're going to hand the ball to Brian Robinson. If Arkansas can stop the run, they got a chance. But Ole Miss actually needs them to lose twice, so it's almost better to root for Alabama to win out, including the SEC championship. So Ole Miss will be in a place to go to the Sugar Bowl if they win out. Florida favored by 8 over Missouri. I'll say that again. Florida's favored by 8 over Missouri. It opened at 10. How bad is Missouri if that's the case? The game of the week last week, or whatever you want to call it, is Florida's 70-52 win over Samford, the Bulldogs. So that is interesting. So the line opened at 10. It's dropped down to 8 almost immediately. The game's at Missouri. I expect it to be cold. I think Florida's got locker room. Florida's got problems. I don't know where it is, but it might cost Dan Mullen his job, and a loss to Missouri might do it. But I just don't know. Auburn's favored over South Carolina by 7. It opened at 10. News broke that Bo Nix and Anders Carlson are out for the season. Bo Nix broke his ankle. And in that game where they just blew a 28-3 lead. But South Carolina, I just don't know. Like, we gave them credit for beating Florida, and then Florida does what they did last week, so South Carolina loses credit for doing that. And, it's TJ Finley time on the Plains. But it's a 7-point line at this point. Tennessee's favored by 27.5 over South Alabama. It opened at 27. Tennessee's been dangerous. They've been fun to watch. I'm telling you, Tennessee, if any Tennessee fans are listening to this podcast, you have the right coach. Get out of his way. Get out of his way. And just let him work. And you can see they're building a little bit of a monster. Ole Miss is a 36.5-point favorite. Opened at 34 over Vanderbilt in Oxford. Senior day down there in Oxford. So I'm looking forward to exactly, it's another night game. And, Ole Miss played very few day games. It's kind of amazing. But it's a 36-point favorite. It's kind of a lot of points. I think Ole Miss wants to get up and then get players out of the game and get them ready for the Egg Bowl, because the Egg Bowl is 5 days away after that. So that game could be something. That game could be something where Ole Miss doesn't cover. Ole Miss wins 31-3. Everybody's like, what's going on? Or 31-10 or 31-17. And it's because they got people out at halftime because they got another game on Thursday night. And LSU is currently favored by 29 points over Louisiana Monroe. The game's at Tiger Stadium. LSU opened favored by 28. That is way too many points for this team. I don't think they could score that many points against Air at this point. And they're closing in on the end of the season. It's a game they have to win if they want to go to a bowl game, because I think they've already hit 6 losses. So 7 could be in the cards to hit a bowl game. So LSU could technically have a two-year bowl ban self-serve for the Our Lady of the Lake probation area already. So that is what the lines look like this week. And I'm just genuinely looking forward to how this is going to play out. Now, tomorrow, no POMcast tomorrow. Tomorrow I've got to go over to Tampa General and get a CAT scan to get started for my procedure. And then on the 30th, we've got an MRI to get ready for my procedure. And then sometime in December, supposedly, they're going to actually do my procedure, which will consist of them doing radiation 5 times. It's going to be all automated. So I guess this is how they map my head and what's going on. Now, they probably wouldn't even need necessarily an MRI if it was anywhere else, but it's in my head, and I'm kind of partial to what's going on up there. So it should be a decent event, but we're starting the weirdness on schedule. So tomorrow morning, I go do my CAT scan. Hopefully tomorrow during the day, we'll be able to record with Bill Flowers and the Biscuits and SEC guys for this weekend. But no POMcast. So don't expect us to be live. We're also not going to have any Beast of the East or Best of the West this week. This is going to start the schedule fluidity. Now realize that we got some interesting, fun stuff planned. Hopefully starting in December. But mainly after the new year. We're going to get that announcement out to you as soon as possible, whenever we can. But it'll be really cool and kind of provide everybody a nice little portfolio in order to sell ads and do whatever they're doing. So we're going to try and bring some people into the tent. And Nasty Natty Gaming wants to be on a podcast. You were just on a podcast. Congratulations. And hope everybody has a good time. This was a great week. We'll do our Know Thy Enemy on Wednesday for Vandy, and we'll be able to move on from there. So thank you very much for tuning in today. And honestly, I'm just really glad you did. So tune in to, Wednesday for the POMcast, Wednesday for SEC After Dark, and then we'll start our Talking Ball and all that with Bill Flowers. But just realize that it's gonna get a little bit wonky moving forward. It's going to get a little wonky with the schedule. So thank you very much for tuning in. We'll catch you Wednesday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, and we should have a lot of good time, a lot of good contact. Get ready for the doors. Hotty toddy.